From the life of Pharaoh's daughter. The next day I met my mother, Pharaoh's daughter, and said to her, "Mother, I want to talk to you about a topic I've been thinking about for a long time." She took me in her arms and said, "What is it that makes you think, Prince of Egypt? All you have to do is to order and all your desires will be fulfilled as you wish." I replied, "Come with me, we are going to a quiet place. I want to talk to you alone." She smiled and said, "Let's go to the platform on the roof of the palace. There we have a nice view on the city." Once there, I said to my mother, "Today I want you to answer my questions honestly. Before I ask you these questions, you should know that you are the sweetest and loveliest mother in the world for me. I will love you in my heart forever. Whenever my eyes see your face, I feel great joy and deep peace in my heart." She replied, "Moses, today you can ask me anything. I will tell you the truth. I know that you love me more than anyone else in the world. Nothing and nobody can destroy our mother-son relationship." I replied, "That is very true. Mother, I went to the Israelite slaves to deal with their problems several times. There I heard that my physical family is still among these slaves. I met my mother, brother, and sister. Mother, now tell me, is that what I heard and saw really the truth? Do I really come from a Hebrew family?" I watched the face of my royal mother very carefully. She became visibly paler. But in the next moment she found her composure and asked me to describe the face of the two women. After I did this, the following words came over her lips. "I knew you would find out the truth one day." I saw how her feelings overwhelmed her. It made me very sad to see her like this. I took her in my arms and said to her, "Even if you now confess to me that these people are my physical family, this fact does not change my love for you. There is no one in this world who can take your place in my heart. You are the only one in my heart that I love as my mother forever and ever." I saw tears running from her eyes, and that also made me cry. Wiping away her tears, she said, "O Prince and future Pharaoh of Egypt, you must be a strong man now. You mustn't cry like a child." Still, I couldn't hold back my tears. Sadness spread inside of me, and my whole body was shaking. Now she took me in her arms until I calmed down again. Then she said to me, "Moses, I never saw a son who loves his mother with so much emotion as you do." And she asked me, "But what about now? You met your real mother." Again, tears ran from my eyes. I replied, "Since I saw the light of the world, you have been my only real mother to me." Later, when I was growing up, I could see so much love in you for me. Your kindness and mercy have accompanied me on every step of my life. What I am today is just an expression of your love for me. Mother, the dream that you want to see fulfilled through me in the future, I will realize it." When she heard this from my mouth, her face was shining with happiness. Then she told me her life story. 30 years ago, I wanted to have my own children, but I couldn't get children. My husband loved me and tried to comfort my heart. My father, the Pharaoh, also loved me very much. He left no stone unturned and did what he could to see me happy. I had everything a person on earth could ask for, but I really wanted to have my own children. When I found out that it was not possible for me, I was incredibly sad. I prayed to all of our gods to fulfill my wish. As time went on, the desire in me to have my own children grew stronger. One day, my father said that he could order that the most beautiful and healthiest children from around the world would be brought to the palace. I could choose from among them and adopt as many children as I wanted and name all my own children. When I heard this from my father's mouth, I started to laugh. But he had meant it very seriously and offered it to me with all his heart. He wanted to do everything to make me happy. One day I said to my father, "You rule different parts of the world, and yet we cannot have everything we want." He stared at me speechlessly at that moment. I then asked him, "Why can't even your God answer my prayer?" A lot of time passed, and I only asked to have a child. Now I will try to ask the God of the Israelites for it. The Israelites say that whoever prays to their God with a sincere heart in the name of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, his prayer will surely be heard by their God. When my father heard this from my mouth, he laughed and said, "Oh, my sweet daughter, today you made me laugh so much that my stomach hurts." Then he said, "How can the God of slaves help you? Their God is not even able to free his own people who weep day and night. It is just their belief and an expression of their hope. The slaves believe that one day their God will free them from all suffering and pain. That's why I'm always afraid that they will give in to their rebellious nature because of their belief. If they can gain more power or influence, they will be very dangerous for our nation. That's why I ordered that their newborn male babies should not stay alive. We could control them so much better. The whole country is gradually filling up with them. And now my own daughter is asking the God of slaves for a child." I replied very snappy, "Then ask your gods to give me a child." The Pharaoh looked at me and said, "My beloved daughter, I don't have that much power over my gods. Otherwise, I would have done it for you a long time ago." One day I prayed very seriously, "O God of the Israelites, if you are the true God of this world, then fulfill my wish and give me a child. If you do that, I will help the slaves who have suffered for a long, long time. O God of Israel, if you fulfill my only wish, I will do my best to fulfill this promise. In my next life, you can give me a good place in your neighborhood as a reward." 40 days after this prayer, I found you, Moses, on the bank of the river. When I found you there, I felt compassion for the Israelite women. I knew very well that the Hebrew woman had abandoned you because she was afraid that she would not be able to protect your life from the soldiers of the Pharaoh. When I first saw you, you cried in your basket. You were a beautiful child. So I decided to adopt you as my child. As I played with you and tried to stop your crying, I saw a girl in the distance. At first the guards didn't want to let her come to me, but she was lucky that I saw her with my own eyes. I sent one of my servants to bring this girl to me. She told me that she knew a woman who would be able to breastfeed you. When I heard this, I knew immediately that there was a connection between this baby and the girl. But I didn't think about it anymore and gave her permission to bring this woman to me. I took you to the palace a few days later. I showed you to my father, the Pharaoh. I put you in his arms and he said that I seemed to be very happy. Then he wanted to know who this child was. I answered him, "The God of the Israelites, even if he is a very poor God, he at least answered my prayer and gave me a child." Pharaoh asked me from whom I got this child, so I told him the whole story. My father was very surprised, but he said nothing. After a while he added, "If you are happy with this Hebrew child, then that's all I want." Later I asked my father that he should withdraw his order to kill the Israelite newborn male babies. Fortunately, he followed my request because he wanted me to see me happy, but actually he was not ready for that. At this point, my mother looked at me and said, "The God of the Israelites helped me to have a wonderful child like you. That's why I helped him at least by saving the Israelite newborn male babies." We both started laughing. I said to her, "Look, the God of the Israelites somehow fulfilled your wish and gave you a child." And she said, "Yes, he gave me a child from his own community." Then she continued, "I believe to know that this young girl was your sister and the woman who she brought was your real mother. Your mother breastfed you for 18 months. I paid her well for raising you, but when I saw how much she cared for you, I felt very strongly that she really had to be your real mother. One day, when she appeared in the palace to breastfeed you, I asked her sincerely and without ulterior motives to tell me the whole truth about herself and the girl. She shouldn't feel that anything happens to her when she tells me the truth." Suddenly, she burst into tears. She affirmed that she was your real mother and the girl her daughter. Then she started to cry out loudly, "Oh great queen, give me back my child. I can't live without it. I want to live with my son in my community." I replied that she would put her child in great danger if she brought him back to the slaves. But she neither wanted to admit nor understand it. She just wanted to have you back and said to me that the Pharaoh had cancelled his order. She couldn't know that he had just done it for my sake. If Pharaoh had ever found out that his daughter's child was no longer there, he would have taken revenge on all the Israelite people. Most of his royal subjects hated the slaves anyway. So I had to make a very tough decision about your mother. I told her that she could get everything else from me. I was ready to help her, but she was so stubborn and wanted to have you back by all means. She started crying louder and louder. I thought it was better to be wiser to calm her down. I got very angry and warned her that she and her family could be killed or put in prison for the rest of their lives if they ever opened their mouths on this subject. This threat worked out and she calmed down. She understood what was the risk for her and her family. Therefore, she never spoke about this topic again. I later thought it would be better if she no longer saw you. So I forbade her to come to the palace. I told her, "You breastfed enough. From now on, the child no longer needs your milk anymore." Moses, I don't know if this was the best way to treat your mother like that, but I felt that if she saw you all the time, it would stress her emotionally more. On the other hand, I was also a little selfish. I wanted to help the Israelite people, but at the same time I didn't want to lose you under any circumstances. I replied, "Mother, in my eyes you did the best for me and the Israelite people." I took her in my arms and said to her, "Today you freed my heart and nothing changed our love. You are still the most beautiful mother for me and I will always be your beloved son for you." Then she said to me, Moses, it would be wiser if we keep this topic as our secret. Nobody, neither Pharaoh nor his royal subjects, should ever know about it. Once you're the Pharaoh of Egypt, we can easily free your people. I agreed with my royal mother that we had to be very careful and to act wisely. As a prince, I had so many tasks to do that I didn't have time to take care of the Israelites every day. For one thing, I didn't want to give Pharaoh the impression that I was too much involved in the affairs of the slaves. I was surrounded by Pharaoh's spies who informed the Pharaoh about every new detail that happened in his territory. On the other hand, I had already trustworthy people to whom I gave the responsibility to look after the Israelite community. I told them to inform me always when the situation worsened for the Israelites. I knew very well that some royal subjects who were very close to the Pharaoh did not want to loosen the bondage of the slaves in any way. Their desire and motivation were that the Israelites should be available for them as slaves forever. These royal subordinates already feared that if the slaves were given a little freedom, they would immediately be encouraged to rebel. Their usual attitude was that hard work had to be used to suppress the slaves from morning until late at night. Only in this way would they not come up with such thoughts but bring happiness to their masters. When the deep night appeared, they could only thank their God that they got some time to rest. The Israelites lived in a kind of ghetto. They couldn't go anywhere they wanted. They could not afford comfort from their earnings even if they wanted it for themselves or for their families. It was very easy for the courtiers and their Egyptian subordinates to order to bring them Jewish women if they wanted to have sex with them. Even if they wished to have Israelite virgins, they didn't need a special permission. They could also enforce their desire against the will of the Jewish community. The Israelites simply had to accept this painful fact. They had no rights to complain or even talk about it. They just had to swallow the suffering. To make a long story short, there was nothing that did not happen to the Israelites. They were surrounded by a never-ending sadness. Suffering and pain were here daily companions. Day in and day out, they hoped that with the help of the God of Abraham, this dark time would be over one day. The name of God gave them peace and hope in their hearts. When I was the Prince of Egypt, I often asked myself this question. Why does the God of Abraham not help his chosen people when he sees the unimaginable suffering in this world? Every time I looked up into the blue sky and asked the God of Israel, if you are the true God of creation, why can't you free these people? What a God are you? Who can believe that you are a powerful God if you just watch how your people have been living in slavery for a long time? Even in the eyes of other nations, your people are members of a lower caste. Sometimes I became very frustrated and angry that the Israelites believed in such a God who was not even able to help them. I didn't think for a single moment that I was the one after Abraham who was chosen by God to lead his people to the promised land. There wasn't even one day on which I thought that I had to deal directly with his people. I could never imagine how disobedient God's people are to him. I was much less concerned about my own future disobedience. One day, while staying in the Israelite community, I saw a large crowd praying to the God of Abraham together. Not only the adults cried loudly, but also their children. They revealed their sins and mistakes in their lives. They asked the God of Israel for forgiveness. At the same time, they made many new promises to God to follow his path as well as that of their ancestors. While I was watching them, I felt a deep pain in my heart. I said to myself, if I were the Pharaoh now, I could change the circumstances for them at this moment so that they can be liberated from their external suffering and pain. I returned with a sad heart to the palace and felt how heavy the responsibility was on me. I had to go to Africa to accomplish a certain mission for the Pharaoh as the leader of his army. 2 years had passed before I returned to Egypt as a successful prince. The Pharaoh was very happy to see me. Above all, he was satisfied with the success of his army. I rested a few days before I called my Jewish, trustworthy people who were responsible for the Israelites' behalf of me. I wanted to find out what had happened to them in my absence. I was informed that their situation had worsened. The royal subordinates oppressed them more than ever. In the meantime, a few courtiers had asked the Pharaoh whether they could cancel my order if it brought relief to the slaves. The Pharaoh followed their wish and took away all the advantages granted to them. Some courtiers even went so far as to claim that my decisions regarding the Israelite community were wrong. They spread rumors that I had sympathy for these people. At the same time, they supported the other princes of the Pharaoh's family. They claimed that they were more qualified to rule Egypt as Pharaoh. However, I was not alone in this situation. Among the Pharaoh's courtiers, there were also many older people who put all their hope in me that one day I would become the future Pharaoh of Egypt. They were seriously behind me. So, they always gave the Pharaoh the wise advice that the best person after him could only be me. This type of conflict, which can also be called a Cold War, took place in the palace. I was very aware that the situation in the palace of the Pharaoh intensified. I began to investigate specifically about the courtiers who were particularly tough on the Jewish slaves. They were also the ones who persuaded Pharaoh to take away the freedoms I had given the Israelites. My research started in secret. I asked for a list especially of the subordinates who aggressively hurt the Israelites and were determined to destroy them. During my absence, they had increased the workload extremely. Not a day passed without the Israelites becoming victims. Some also died from the inhuman and violent treatment of the royal subordinates. They were after it that their brutal instructions were carried out and followed. When I saw all of this, I got very angry. I called the people entrusted to me, including some leaders of the Jewish community. At our secret meeting, I asked them what we could do about the royal subordinates who badly degraded and mistreated the Israelites every day. There was only one solution. We decided together to kill them and bury them after their death far away in the desert. One of my royal subordinates, whom I trusted very much, invited the most hateful courtiers for dinner. He informed them that during this meal they would also talk about how to exploit the Israelite slaves even more. Everything was arranged so that no stranger could come in. A confidant, therefore, informed the other royal subordinates exactly about the place where the meeting was to take place. I was hiding in the background with my other people because these extremists shouldn't see us right away. When everyone had gathered and sat down, we fell upon them and killed them. We killed all of the 17 royal subordinates that day. It is also true that I only killed one, namely the leader. The other 16 lost their lives through my people. I never mentioned this fact in my religious books. There I only told that one Egyptian was killed through my hand. As planned, we buried them far away in the desert. But it was not a small event. The rumor spread quickly in Egypt. The Pharaoh and the royal court were particularly upset. They started to investigate where the 17 royal subordinates would have gone. It was also a shocking fact for the Egyptian people. The investigations focused very much on me and on the royal subordinates who trusted me. They lasted for almost 2 years. Even Pharaoh personally asked me if I had anything to do with the whole thing. I simply denied it and showed my loyalty to Pharaoh, his courtiers, and his nation. The Pharaoh stared at me calmly but said nothing. But I felt that he doubted me. The fact that I was part of his family did not make it easy for the investigation to suspect me as Prince of Egypt based only on speculations. After 2.5 years, the investigation took a different direction. The royal subordinates who were hostile to me bribed the Israelites' leaders whom I trusted. They were with me when we killed the 17 royal Egyptians. They betrayed me and told everything. They even mentioned that I had met my physical family in secret. They revealed almost everything they knew about me. At this point of his life story, Moses became very sad and he said to me, "Zahid, my own people betrayed me. They were the ones for whom I wanted to do everything to liberate them." When Pharaoh found out all the truth, he was extremely angry and incredibly sorry that his daughter had adopted a Hebrew child. In this situation, my royal mother went to Pharaoh, but this time he refused to let her enter. The Pharaoh immediately held a secret meeting with the royal subordinates whom he still trusted in this matter. They very quickly decided to arrest me along with the royal Egyptians who were involved and helped me in this matter. The Pharaoh and his royal court were so angry about the whole thing that they wanted to kill me. During this time I was waiting in the palace for the result of this meeting. The first person to give me detailed information was my future wife, Reason. She hurried over to me and said, "My father sends you the secret message. When Pharaoh met his royal court, they decided that you should be killed. Now they are trying to find you." After this message, Reason started to cry and sobbed, "Moses, how can I live the rest of my life without you?" I had no answer. I asked Reason to go back and see how the new situation would develop. As soon as she went out, I wanted to leave the palace to bring myself to safety. A servant of my royal mother brought me the message that she wanted to see me. However, I did not follow it because in my eyes I was too close to the palace and it could have cost me my life. I left the city quietly and secretly and stayed in a safe place. I sent Egyptians whom I trusted into the city to find out how the situation was developing for me. 3 days later, they informed me that the Pharaoh had sent out his army to capture me. My death was already decided. It was very difficult for me and I didn't know what to do. I was upset, frustrated, and emotionally hurt. The whole world darkened before my eyes. For the first time, I prayed to the God of Abraham and asked him what would happen if I went back to the palace. I asked for help and guidance. I hadn't even finished my prayer when I saw a vision that surprised me very much. I had never seen such a phenomenon before. In this vision, which was very short, I saw that I would be killed when I returned to the palace. Then I heard a voice, "Moses, don't go back to Pharaoh's palace."